Evangelism. In our American culture today, that one word can have a multitude of connotations and bring a response that sometimes is positive and sometimes is negative. But the heart of that word is what we want to hit on today. The heart of that word means to proclaim the good news or the gospel of Jesus Christ. And as Christians, it's exactly what we're called to do. We can live our lives from day to day and we can do all the right things, but if we never share the hope of Christ with others, we have missed such a vital component of this life as Christians. We are talking this year at Planting Roots about meeting and multiplying. And as we've talked about meeting the past couple of months, hopefully you see that in our other devotionals throughout the last 2 months. This month, we're going to focus more on multiplication. How do we share the gospel? Is it even important? And how do I do that when I certainly don't feel qualified to do so? So my question for you today is, who shared the gospel with you? We're going to dig into Acts a little bit more today because what I want you to see is so many times we look at Acts and we see the early church and we understand it to be these apostles and teachers who shared the gospel, who preached the gospel. And sometimes we forget that it was everyday people sharing the hope of Christ. And if we read in Acts chapter 5, verse 42, it actually says, every day in the temple and in various homes, they continued teaching and proclaiming the good news that Jesus is the Messiah. So in these verses, and as we look throughout the scripture, as we look throughout Acts, as we look through the New Testament, we see that sharing the gospel is not something only assigned to leaders, apostles, pastors, teachers. It's not just to them alone. It's to all of us. We all have the opportunity and the privilege to share the hope of Christ that we know with those around us. It can seem intimidating. I know, hence the question of who told you about Jesus. But in real life, it's simply living real life. I remember the person who told me about Jesus were actually my parents. And my parents, they took me to church. We read scripture, we prayed before meals, we did all the right things. But the way that I saw Christ in them most of all was the way that they lived their everyday lives. They cared for people, they loved people, they helped people. They helped us, they encouraged us. These were the things where I saw the gospel come to life, where I saw their faith through their actions. And so the words that they spoke to me matched up with the actions that they had, which then caused me to understand the true love and purpose of the gospel itself, the true impact, the true difference that the gospel can make, and the truth of Jesus. So as you ponder today and you think, gosh, I don't know if I know all the answers, or I don't know if I have the right words, or I don't know if whatever, start with living life like you believe the gospel. Live your life like you believe the gospel. Share with others, help others, encourage others. And these are people that you run across in our everyday lives, whether we're at the commissary or in the elevator or at the park or at work. Wherever we run across people, it's an opportunity for us to share the gospel through the life that we live. But don't miss the other part of using those words. Do you know the hope of Christ? Do you know what life used to be like without Christ and know what it is today? Do you know what he's taught you or how he's grown you in your walk with him? Share those things. You are more than qualified to share the hope of Christ if you have met him yourself. So my encouragement to you today as we look through this month on multiplying, I want you to see yourself as having all that you need in order to share the hope of Christ with others, wherever in the world you happen to be located. And I want to challenge you to keep your eyes open and your ears open for opportunities to do that this week. Again, drop in the comments below who shared the gospel with you. And then check us out next week as we jump into this next idea of not just converting people, but discipling them. I will see you next week. In the meantime, pop over to plantingroots.net and check out other resources as we talk about meeting and multiplying.